This is When Science Speaks, a new web series profiling innovative and interesting people working in science and technical fields, from academia to industry to the nonprofit world. We explore how to be a powerhouse advocate for science and your research, how to advance your career in meaningful ways that make you happy, and how to push back on the ongoing assault on science and other related issues of interest happening in the world.
Well, hey everyone, it's Mark Bayer, and you are tuned to When Science Speaks. This episode of the show is sponsored by OneSkin, led by Ph.D. scientists dedicated to helping people age in a healthy, vibrant way. OneSkin patented the first protein building block scientifically proven to reverse skin aging at the molecular level. Listeners of When Science Speaks receive a special 15% discount off an entire OneSkin order. That's any products, no minimum purchase. And if you haven't yet experienced OneSkin products, and decide to subscribe, you'll get a first-time subscriber discount plus an additional 15% off your subscription with the special Science15 code for When Science Speaks listeners. That's just the word science followed by the number 15. Just go to oneskin.co and use the promo code Science15 at checkout. And we'll also have a link in the show notes to the discount code. It is wonderful to have Dr. Anna Clemens here today. Anna is an academic writing coach who runs the Researchers Writing Academy, which is an online program for researchers who want to get their papers published without procrastinating on the writing. It's her company's mission to make academia a more diverse and joyful place for researchers from all backgrounds. Anna has a Ph.D. in materials science from Chalmers University of Technology in Sweden and a diploma, which is a Master of Science equivalent in the US, in chemistry from RWTH Aachen in Germany. Previously, she has also worked as a science journalist and published articles in Scientific American and other popular science magazines. You can connect with Anna on Twitter at ScientistWrite, that's at Scientists, WRITE, or LinkedIn. Anna also offers a free 1-hour writing training on her website, which you can access at annaclemens.com/training. Anna, so nice to have you on the show. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for the invitation.
Before building your company, Researchers Writing Academy, and we'll be talking about the company in detail, of course, in a few minutes, as well as having a link to the training and other ways of getting in touch with you. But before doing that, before you launched your career outside academia, your professional focus was materials science, in which you earned your PhD. What sparked your interest in science initially, would you say?
First want to say I really love the question because it's something nobody has ever asked. People always go back to, why did you choose writing? But no one has ever asked me why I chose science. And at first, when I was thinking about the question, I was thinking, okay, there isn't really a story here, which I think is interesting. And then I thought, maybe this is encouraging to people, especially maybe to young women, to girls who are at school, because I was one of those people, and I think I still am one of those people. I'm multi-passionate. So I was into science. I was more into maths actually in high school, and a bit into science, chemistry, and then I was into like writing, literature, all that stuff, languages. I learned like 4 languages in school. Like, it was a lot, and I love both things. And then when I graduated, I didn't know what to do. I didn't have a strong idea either way. I wasn't super passionate. I was thinking, oh, I could study German or literature, journalism, or I could do like science. I felt like I could earn more money going into science. And I liked it. And at the same time, I started to make my own soap and like cosmetics, something I got into as a teenager. And then you learn chemistry, right? And what you learn in school about chemistry suddenly gets so real. And I thought it was fascinating. And it did quite push me into chemistry because what I wanted to do first was biology. So I actually went to sign up for biology, and biology was super like hard to get into in Germany at that point, and chemistry was. And also, I should say, I didn't have the best grades in school. I don't know. Sometimes it feels odd talking to other people who made a career in science or who got a PhD in science, and they usually you hear of people who had really good grades, and I didn't have really good grades. Like school wasn't the right like learning model for me. I excelled in university, like, which I don't know. Maybe this is encouraging to hear for girls and young women and maybe other people who just don't thrive in school because just because something you are not like, I don't know, excelling at something in school, it doesn't mean anything for what happens afterwards.
Mhm.
Because I love going to university. So anyway, I had to do an introductory course in chemistry and for this biology degree. And the biology degree wasn't even quite clear whether I would get in or not. There was this whole process. And then in this like introductory course that was 2 weeks in the summer, I was like, oh my God, I love chemistry. It's like, this is so cool. This is so fascinating. I just want to do that. So I just took back my application and I signed up for chemistry, which didn't have any entry requirements at that time. I was told my grades were good enough for that. And yeah, I took that on and I loved it. I really liked that. And then it turned into material science, but it turned more, I guess my interest became more towards like physical chemistry. So it became more into the physics space. And that kind of pushed me a bit into material science, which is like this conglomerate of, it's very interdisciplinary. So it takes from all different subjects. And I really like that. I guess that speaks again to that I always like, I'm multi-passionate. I like different things. I liked combining things from different fields. So that was very fitting.
Yeah. And actually, I think that's really cool and innovative. That's how new revolutionary novel ideas happen by taking what seem to be disparate pieces from these various subjects and combining them, stitching them together in new
Mhm.
ways. Really exciting. And then, as you mentioned, you were passionate about journalism and writing. And I'm wondering, as you applied your scientific background and your analytical thinking skills in this new area, were there techniques that you found particularly helpful in distilling complicated scientific topics into articles for the publications that you were writing for?
This is also a really fascinating question that again nobody has ever asked me, and I really thought about that. And I think for me, what really helped me when it comes to writing is realizing that when I don't understand something about what I'm writing, my reader won't either. Like, it's impossible to make someone understand something that you haven't understood yourself. And I think I started to realize this when I was writing my PhD thesis. I actually, so in Sweden, where I did my PhD, you had a PhD and a licentiate. So you did like a mini PhD, 2, 3 years in, and then 2 years in, and then 4 years, like after 4 years was the PhD. So you wrote two theses. So I had a lot of writing and then all the articles and stuff like that. Like writing was a big part and I loved it, really loved it. And I think what I started to realize it is I need to take my reader like on this journey with me. Like I need to walk them through. I need to start out with what they know and then step by step walk them to the thing that I want to tell them. Focus on what they need to know to get to where you want them to go, what you want to communicate to them. And this came very natural to me.
Mhm.
I don't think anyone ever taught me this. I didn't have any academic writing training as a PhD student. It came quite intuitively to me. And then after I had a brief stint as a science journalist and I did an internship, among other things, at the German edition of Scientific American.
Mhm.
Very old, very big popular science journal. I would say it's probably the best one in Germany as well. I think it's one of the best ones in the US, Scientific American, and the German one is also one of the best in Germany. Really, really great publication with really great editors. So I learned a ton from them. And one thing was that I think really helps me so much still. This is how I could develop one of the core pieces based on which I could develop my writing training is they would point out, they would always find the point in my writing when I hadn't understood what I was writing about. Because I was writing about all different subjects. So I was never expert, and journalists never are, usually aren't like a
Mhm.
mega expert, subject matter expert. They try to understand and then write about it. So it's quite difficult, especially in the beginning. I've wrote about all different things. So you only have so much time. You can't do unlimited reading. And my editors would always find it. They would always find the point. And that was fascinating to me. And then I guess the like kind of sentiment I want to get back to is when you don't understand something, the reader won't either. Like they don't get it. And just, I think it's almost similar to teaching. I guess being self-reflective enough of being like, okay, this is actually something I'm not understanding. And not thinking that, oh, I should understand this and brush over it and everyone else will understand. No, if you don't understand that, you have to go deeper because you will not be able to write this clearly if you don't understand it. And I can still pinpoint in other people's writing when they don't understand something. It shows, like when I, as an outsider who isn't an expert in the subject either, read something, you notice when that person hasn't really understood a connection or maybe hasn't put themselves in the shoes of someone who doesn't know it. They just brushed over a very important point that they didn't think was necessary to like make the connection.
It's an important point, and there's a lot there to unpack. One thing that you pointed out is to really deeply understand something, you have to take it apart and then really grasp it. And then you can decide what elements, once you have the full inventory of this issue, because you understand it so thoroughly, then you can decide which elements should be emphasized to the reader who doesn't know anything about it. The other thing I was going to say, but that point in the process perhaps, is that you have this passion for language, and there's a amount of neurological processing power perhaps that requires translation, which can't be word for word, of course, because languages are expressing different ideas and different ways and all those sorts of things. And I'm wondering if your deep experience with various languages helped you in that translation process as you were, okay, I really need to understand and then distill it down. And then I need to present it in a way that matches the listener's understanding. And that's a certain degree of translation that's required there. That can't just be a kind of one for one thing. You have to, like you were saying, pick up on things the reader already knows and leverage those things in understanding. So do you feel like your language experience also helped you and helps you now perhaps as you are teaching others to translate and communicate their work to readers who don't know much about it?
This is really interesting. I've never thought about this, that there might be a connection. So it's not something I think about,
Mhm.
but I do think that maybe this is things that just happen in your brain as you expose it to different things. As I said, like writing came quite natural to me as a PhD student, which was odd because it didn't come natural to my colleagues. Everyone hated it except me. Like, that was kind of my experience. And I read a lot as a child. I
Mhm.
still do. And I think that does something, just being exposed to writing teaches you things. The languages, I can only think that I could imagine that something happens without me noticing
Mhm.
in the way my brain works, but it's not something I've ever thought about. But it's very interesting thought.
Yeah, thank you. It's actually one of the two sort of factors after 200 plus episodes of the show that really stand out to me when it comes to scientists who are fantastic communicators as well as being fantastic scientists. They're often bilingual
Interesting.
and or first in their family to go to college. They are
Interesting.
translating for
Yeah.
family members a lot, starting at a relatively young age when they've already surpassed subjects that their parents, for example, may have exposure to. Yet they
Right.
still need to answer the question, "So what did you do in school today?" You know,
Yeah.
without being
Yeah.
condescending. And this kind of leads in, Anna, to another question I would like to ask you, which are some of the common problems you find your clients and many in academia generally have in writing papers for journals.
So there are really two main problems that people approach me with and that we help with. One is getting started with writing. The other one is not getting rejected or publishing high quality work. So the first one, getting started, is a lot about this kind of thing like procrastination. You either, if you're very busy, especially that's probably true for a lot of assistant professors, associate professors, full professors. They have a lot going on in their schedule. Writing never really takes up priority because there are no deadlines often, and they build up this like huge backlog of papers, and they never really finish projects. Like they're like starting new projects, or when there's like projects with deadlines, those maybe get finished, but the ones that often actually the researchers care a lot about, it's often like the research, the science that they really like, the science they really want to have out there. So it is something they want to get out there, and they need to get out there as well for their career. They need to get promoted. They want to get promoted, and they need papers for that. But it's not happening. And for younger researchers, for more early career researchers, like PhD students, for example, the case is often that they sit there and they think, okay, today I'm going to do writing. They open this big blank page, get scared, and be like, okay, no, I don't know what to write. Maybe tomorrow. Maybe I'll feel like writing tomorrow. And then they do analysis. Then they do a poster. They go back to the lab to get. There's so many things to do, right? So you can always do something else. And then they go, oh, I think I've write this blog. I can't write. This is a big problem that a lot of people suffer from. If some of you listening can relate, I just want to say you're not alone. And this is also, it's normal. It's the default state, I always say. It's like when nobody ever taught you how to write, well, how to do it. This is normal because writing is super, super hard. Like it is not just a thing that you can just do. And this is how it's treated in academia. You never get, or very rarely people get formally trained. Even when they get trained, we can talk about this later. I feel like the emphasis is on the wrong thing often. And maybe the second thing that I was mentioning is getting rejected from the journals you're submitting your work to, or you feel like, oh, I could put like higher quality work out there that readers love reading and they understand and can engage with, and they hopefully cite, and all those things make a better contribution to the literature. And honestly, that's a bit of my mission as well. I want to make the scientific literature, I want to elevate it, because so much of it currently is not very accessible, even for research. Of course, it's not. You don't communicate to the lay audience, but you do still communicate to your colleagues in publications. And people really overestimate how much knowledge even their peers have if they are not that deep into a topic. When you're so deep in a topic, it's so hard to see. It's like the curse of the expert. You can't even imagine how little other people may know about your work.
Yeah.
And I guess also the difficulty that if you want to tackle a bit of these like higher impact factor journals, a lot of people, a lot of researchers play safe and they don't submit to those because they don't know. It feels like a black box. It feels like, oh, I don't know how to write for them. And also I think fear of rejection plays in. So they are like, I play safe. I do a mid-tier journal because I know my stuff gets published there. We've been publishing there forever. And yeah, that's like the two main areas.
Yeah, it's a combination of factors that to me seem all kind of pointing in the direction of putting off writing. You're never really received much training in it. It maybe isn't valued that highly depending on, and I'm talking about not necessarily writing for journals, but maybe writing for more general audiences like those who read the Scientific American, for example. And then you have a lot of other priorities that you could easily turn to that you like doing better. And then, of course, the fear of rejection, like you pointed out, sometimes that can lead to total paralysis as you think it's going to be so difficult to actually get this accepted. And I need to make it perfect. And then you get into this crazy vortex.
Oh,
So
yeah.
let's talk about the Researchers Writing Academy, because you deal with and you help your students through this syndrome. And I'd love for you to share with listeners the types of students that you work with, some of the challenges that you mentioned, I'm sure you see all the time with your clients, and then the results that your clients receive from working with you and your team.
Yeah, so we work with, in the Researchers Writing Academy, we work with researchers at all levels, essentially. So we have the biggest group is assistant professors, and the second biggest group is on the postdoc or researcher level, and the third biggest PhD students. But we also have full professors, associate professors, a couple undergraduate students even, and they join us exactly because of the two things I just mentioned. It's either or both of the things. So getting started, they don't know how to get started, and or and/or they get rejected or want to tackle higher impact journals. And the way that, or the way I solve these problems, because I do think they're connected as well, is teaching a process, teaching a system how to write papers. This is something that I've seen really as missing out there, and maybe just to now talk a little bit about my criticism of writing training that is often offered at universities. A lot of writing training is really good, a lot of academic writing training, but it focuses heavily on English, on language, on academic English, essentially. Like, how do I speak? How do I write with professional academic English? What are the turns of phrase to use? Things like that. And some like other like general writing advice that is very useful. And I think something you need to know in order to write a good article. But to me, and they are often facilitated by linguists. So it's often like writing centers that are situated in like linguistic departments at the university. And I think this is great to teach the English and the language, but it's not the whole story. And actually story. So a lot of what I do is around story. So what I'm teaching people is how to develop your article so that it tells a concise and compelling story and a coherent story, so that from start to finish, you are telling the reader one story. So really putting yourself in your reader's shoes, being like, okay, how can they process this information? Like, you have your data set, right? This is my findings. I found, I don't know, that X is dependent on Y. And this is what you want to communicate to them, but they don't have any connection to this piece of information. So you need to start setting the scene, starting with, okay, what do they know? What does the reader of the journal know? And then get them to a motivation. Okay, why do we need to why did we decide to study this? And then present them with your findings and then discuss the findings. Like, there's all you can tell, and I think you should tell a story in your paper, because that's what we as humans have evolved to process information.
I think I'm sorry. I want to just can I ask you a question on that for a second? I think that very much reflects an earlier comment that you made about using what the reader already knows and can relate to. And although we might think when we hear that you're talking, or when people talk about that kind of point, they're talking about the content. And that is certainly true. You can use rhetorical devices and compare what's new to something that the reader already knows about. And also, you can use the framework that we're used to processing information within. So I think that's just an interesting point that that reinforces the importance that you place on using things the reader's already familiar with, is actually put it in a format that the reader is cognitively already predisposed to.
That's a really good point. And yeah, I also think that the story like kind of tackles then the quality part of your paper. Like, your paper will be of a better quality if you tell a story, because you as the author have to think through things a lot more than just like reporting your data, right? It's like a paper, it shouldn't be just a data report where you just dump your data. But in order to tell a story, you need to do so much thinking. You need to really go deep, and like we go back again to this like understanding what it actually means. You do so much of that when you write a paper, and that process is really helpful, results in better quality work that the reader actually understands. And when you do that process, it already is in the word, it's a process. So now suddenly we have a process. So we don't just sit down and try to write, starting with the introduction, the first sentence, and just sit down, and now we follow a process. And the process starts with developing your story. So thinking through your story. And this is the way I teach it. And this is why I think that the process and the quality of the article, they're so interlinked. So it is one thing. This is what we do in the Researchers Writing Academy.
It's so fascinating to me, because as we're talking and you're describing the story structure that you're teaching, When we were just talking a bit about how that structure is familiar to all of us. We were talking in the context of the reader. And then I was also imagining the kind of picture that you painted when you described a researcher sitting down and opening up a blank page of a notebook and being completely intimidated by it and then drawn to something else that they could do and decide, I'll do this later. When you give them a narrative structure, if you're using a narrative structure to teach the researcher how to write, of course, that's a structure that the writer is also familiar with. And it gives them the ability to organize their thoughts within a framework that they know. Yeah, I can just see how valuable that is.
Yeah, this is a really, really nice description of how this is interlinked. I sometimes have a hard time explaining this. And I think it's because it's so unusual in the academic writing space that this is being done, which is fascinating to me. I guess also coming back to the interdisciplinary, I think because I was always so multi-passionate, I don't know. It's always easy to like make sense of things like in hindsight. But I like putting concepts together, like seeing like a structure, a system. Systems are important to me. And I think this is when I realized the realization really came. I used to edit papers as an independent editor for researchers. And what really occurred to me was like, okay, I'm too late in the process.
Mhm.
They already wrote everything. And now I'm here coming back asking like really fundamental questions, like foundational questions. And I was like, this is a waste of time for them because they just want to get this out there. Yes, we could make it like really good. We could get it like from 80 to 100% if we tackled those things, but it's probably not worth it to do the process again. And I was like, okay, no, I need to start early in the process with researchers. I need to start when they start writing, and I want to take them through that process. And this is how this all like developed, just to give you a bit of a backstory there. And I think you also asked me what researchers take away from the academy, like what do they learn? And one thing that wasn't even one of my explicit goals, but that I wanted to mention is a really big result we get is that researchers start enjoying writing. They actually like sitting down and write. And I find this beautiful, and this makes me incredibly happy. Like, I always love writing myself. I think it's an amazing activity because you get deeply into something. It's cognitively hard. So you have to convince your brain a little bit, right? No, we're really going to do this now. And having a process helps, right? Because then okay, today I'm going to do this little tiny bit of the process. And it's on my Trello board or whatever I'm using. It's there. I know I'm doing this today in the like next 30, 60 minutes that I have. So that's easier. And also just knowing that it's gonna feel good. Having a bit of this like positive reward cycle.
Mhm.
Like going to the gym. I always compare writing to going to the gym because I think they're so similar. When you enjoy going to the gym, you're gonna go no matter what. I don't know, today it's raining or this and that didn't work quite well. I didn't sleep enough. Oh, I think I'm like you're not gonna talk yourself out of it because
Mhm.
if you love going to the gym, you're just gonna go. And it's the same with writing. And yeah, this is just a result I wanted to mention. Yeah, I think even though it's not quantifiable, it is my favorite result because when people enjoy writing, when researchers enjoy writing, guess what? They're going to do it more. They just gonna make it a priority in their schedule.
Mhm.
And one member or alumna, I should say, of the Researchers Writing Academy, I talked to her during her last few weeks of enrollment, and she said, I think this program made me a better academic because I now write more. I now actually sit down and write more.
Mhm.
And I think that, yeah, that kind of captures it, I think, really.
That's wonderful. And that's a transformation. It really is a huge transformation that can alter someone's career in a positive way. Yeah, just wonderful. And we'll have links to the Researchers Writing Academy and how to get in touch with you and other resources, including free resources that you have for folks who
Mhm.
are listening. As we wrap up, Anna, looking at the rest of Q2, we are talking in late April of 2023. Looking at the rest of Q2 and beyond, What are some of your goals? They could be personal, professional goals if you'd like to share them.
Yeah. So professionally, maybe we start there. I'm only like my main focus, my only focus is the Researchers Writing Academy. That's what I work with full time. And I have two big goals for the rest of the year, or for at least for Q3, I would say,
Mhm.
or rest of Q2. One is I'm about to develop a new module for the course, because I realized that writing a paper is one thing that people struggle with, and something else, a bit of a smaller point, but still something that's been coming up again and again in
Mhm.
our program, is people struggle with, I call it building a literature database. So reading the literature, extracting the information they need from that paper they're reading, and saving it in a place, and having a system for that whole process. Something that I want to dive deep in, and I'm looking forward to that. I already ordered a bunch of books and other like resources. And I feel like there must be a system we can use for that. There must be a method that no matter what subject you're in, you can use. So this is one goal. Maybe, I don't know. I shouldn't maybe say this publicly because I may fail, but that's okay. Maybe it doesn't work out, and that's totally okay. But it's a goal I have for the summer.
Yeah.
My second goal professionally is I want to grow my team. The Researchers Writing Academy currently is me facilitating the content and driving it, being the CEO, and my lovely administrative assistant, Andrea, who's doing also a lot of client support, a lot of all of those things. And yeah, we're currently looking for another academic writing coach to join us, and another administrative help. So that's the other big thing that is happening.
Yeah,
And personally,
fantastic. Go
yeah.
ahead, please.
Okay, I say personally as well. I started I mentioned the gym earlier because I started weightlifting
Mhm.
a while ago. I'm still not strong, but I'm getting there. So I have some goals for what I want to be able to lift in the different exercises. So that's my goal. I don't know when it's gonna be. I'm not too strict. As long as I'm making progress, I'm
Mhm.
happy. And the second thing is I really want to learn to play the drums. So
Yes, I love it.
I
I
started. Do you play?
It's funny because about 3 years ago, this was before the pandemic, I had for a birthday, I thought, "You know what? I really wanna learn something new, and I wanna learn how to play the guitar."
Mhm.
And I started with YouTube, and just recently actually hired an instructor, also
Oh,
virtual
fun.
though.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and it's made a huge difference. It really I just love I have my 2 guitars here, and,
Uh-huh.
it's on multiple levels, really exploring and beginning this journey that from the beginning, and then
Mhm.
seeing the like you're pointing out, seeing the progress.
Mhm.
And, it's funny too because you mentioned you don't have a you have goals, but you really wanna see progress, and that's where I'm at too. I have my goals are, like, fuzzier, but, I've seen real progress, and that
Mhm.
gives me a lot of dopamine, so I'm happy about
Mhm.
that.
Yeah, I honestly think it's something that actually comes up in the Researchers Writing Academy as well. We have accountability threads. So every Sunday, we ask our members, hey, what you're planning for the week? What kind of writing do you want to get done? How many sessions are you planning? What you're going to tackle? Just like a little reminder, organize your week, structure your week, put in your Trello board, make like goals. And then on Fridays, we check in, hey, how was it? How did it go? That's a lot of fun. And these threads are very popular. And one thing that I'm really trying to convey to people is when it comes to goal setting, it really isn't so much about, first of all, don't set too ambitious goals because you're just beating yourself up about not
Mhm.
achieving them if they're unrealistic. And secondly, it really, I think the reason why we set goals is not in order so we can always be tick, tick, but rather to have something to look forward, like to be like, okay, this is where I want to go, like focus. I think a goal gives you focus. This is how I try to see them in my private life as well. I want to play the drum, like I want to learn how to play the drums well. So this is one of my, it's the focus. So then I'll spend time doing it because I know, okay, this is the focus in my life right now. But I don't need to hit a certain milestone. And I think what I frequently say in those threads again is progress over perfection. Like it's all about the progress. The progress is where life happens, honestly. Honestly, even to get maybe more philosophical, progress is like what you actually do when you write a paper is science. Like you're being a scientist. This is why you started this whole endeavor in the first place. Wasn't to count your papers that you published. No, it was to do science. And this is what you're doing, and this is what we should be cherishing. And just, yeah, I guess this is a journey I'm on personally as well, trying to cherish what is actually happening. It's not about a goal you want to hit.
Just wonderful, really inspirational on multiple levels. People understanding they're not the only one who has challenges when it comes to writing, and then the system that you've developed to help people really turn what was something they put off and procrastinated to maybe something they're looking forward to. And of course, what they like doing, they do. And the more you do something, the better you get, which then gives you more positive feedback, which starts this virtuous cycle. So it can really be transformational. Dr. Anna Clemens, the Researchers Writing Academy, fantastic resource, and we'll have ways for folks to get in touch with you and also find the resources that you have available there. I know it's really going to benefit our listeners. So thanks for taking time out of your schedule to come on and talk about that and other fascinating topics.
Oh, thank you so much. It was such a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. And listeners, thank you for being here on this episode of When Science Speaks. And I hope you'll be back next time for the next episode of When Science Speaks.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to click subscribe. Check us out on the web at whensciencespeaks.com, and we'll see you next time.